All right. Thank you guys for joining me. So tonight, if you have not seen any of the posts, we're going to be talking about tenant screening and basically how I do it, self-managing. And now I have an assistant, she helps me with a lot of the self-management as well. But we don't do any third-party contracting and managers or anything like that. So I'm going to walk through kind of A to Z our systems from the time we first finish a property or get it ready for lease, and then we turn out and start leasing it all the way through, kind of the tenancy and how we handle that process. Hey Jordan, thanks for joining us, man. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Long time to see.
Yeah, how's it going, Joe? Nice to see you.
Yeah, good man. Good seeing you. Thanks for joining us. All right, let me share my screen here. All right, everybody see that? Should be a Facebook Marketplace post. All right, cool. So I wanted to start with this because I would say that in the last 6-7 years, marketing on Facebook has probably placed about 75% of my tenants. So it is probably in my opinion, it is the most widely viewed, and the reason why I like it, it lets you really direct your marketing to those people in those locations. That's what I found. I would say second's probably Zillow. So I put that up here for anyone who's not using Zillow. And I know Zillow for a while went from you had to have a pay. So when I started, it was free. And then for a while, you had to pay like $10 to list a property for lease. And then all of a sudden, about a year ago, we realized it was free again. I have no idea what dictates that or how it works. I've even heard like clients in California who are right now they have to pay for it, but it's free here. I don't know if it's, location based. I don't know. But all I can tell you is right now it's free. So we're using it again. And we also use apartments.com. I'll get more into that. And I just recently on the 28 units started using Turbo Tenant, and I will explain why I started using that. So we're going to start with the marketing. As far as Turbo Tenant, it syndicates to, I think, apartments.com, Zillow. I don't know if I can find it on here, but it actually puts them all over the place. Yeah, Turbo Tenant, apartments.com, Craigslist, realtor.com, Facebook Marketplace. So there it shows you some of the leads. So I like that because it kind of minimizes my downtime. I don't have to sit there and go through and list it 10 different times. Apartments.com also syndicates to several. But Facebook, again, is if you're not using Facebook for your marketing, it is, in my opinion, the best marketing you can use, especially here in Cincinnati. I can't speak for other markets, but in Cincinnati for sure, it's got a ton of traction. So obviously you want to have a really good listing. This is the last one we had. And now recently they just got rid of where your business page can post marketplace listings. So for housing and for rent. So it's really frustrating. I don't know why they did that. For the last 6 years, I used my business page. And just recently I had to switch to my personal page. So it still allows you to post listings on your personal page, but not a business page. For some of you that may not matter, but for me as an agent, it was really cool because I could then bring in literally hundreds of, potential clients as potential tenants, right? So I'm getting all of their contact info collected through one funnel. So it was really nice for those reasons. It also got me up to like 700 followers on my business page. And I would say 50% of those are people who were following me because of posting, apartment listings. Again, may not matter to most of you, but if you're in real estate, it was nice. Again, doesn't matter because they got rid of it just this January 1st. So,
hey Joe, can I ask you a quick question
yeah,
on that?
go ahead.
On the marketplace. So
Yep.
when you go into there and post like in housing or whatever,
Yes.
I've never done that in terms of using marketplace, but then does it set like a radius, or do you set
I don't think it sets a radius, but you put in an address and then it will
blast
give
it
you it will locate it based on that. Yep.
Because I know on the paid ads, like I've done paid ads and stuff where you can select, certain
yeah,
area
I think on marketplace it's all geolocated, so it's yeah. So
you didn't have to go into like subcategories of like Bethel or anything like that, or
nope. Okay. And when you pay for ads, I know we're talking about you set the radius for ads.
Yeah,
you don't have to do that on the listings.
Okay, cool.
So obviously this is kind of common sense, but it's very important. Make sure you're taking good photos. Make sure you're showing the kitchens and the bathrooms, whatever like special features about your property. Make sure you're highlighting those. I mean, this is obviously for any platform. I'm just kind of showing you guys examples. I always make my first the front of the page or the front of the property, because I've had a lot of tenants when I didn't used to do that, be like, hey, I can't find it. Which property is this? Because on Facebook, you can hide the address, which I always do, because I don't want people knowing if there's a vacant apartment somewhere until I've had that communication with them and make sure that they're, legit. Again, Zillow is very similar. I don't want to spend a ton of time, on talking about each individual one, but, to me, I want to have as many eyeballs on my property as possible. So I try to use as many of these as possible. And again, if you're using Rent Manager or some other program, which I don't use, the things you have to pay for, they automatically syndicate to these. But TurboTenant is a free software that also syndicates to a lot of these. So the reason why I switched to TurboTenant on the 28 unit is because apartments.com would no longer allow properties with over 20 units unless you paid a very expensive subscription. So for me, it just didn't make any sense. If I was going to spend that kind of money, I would transition everything over to like a Rent Manager or one of the software programs that would then do everything in-house, collect all my rent, do all my background screenings, all those things. So I'm just going to walk you straight down the funnel. Okay, so now this is the marketing. We put them out on all these websites. That's pretty straightforward. Now, what I do that may be different than a lot of people is that whenever I have that initial contact from anybody, whether someone calls our company number, whether somebody messages me on Facebook, whether I get, marketplace messages, apartments.com, emails, whatever, right? Any way somebody can get a hold of me, they automatically get a response that has a link for a tenant questionnaire. Okay. And that's this right here. You guys all see that? Okay. So this is something I just made. I'm happy to share the link. I'll put it in the YouTube notes, but it's like, if you want to see an example, copy it, however you want to use it, you just go on Google Forms. These are free to make, and it just gives you a link, and you share that link, and anyone with that link, it goes to this page as somebody answering questions, right? So whenever, let's say we have 4 vacancies, I put every single apartment up here. They can click which ones they're interested in, because obviously someone who may be looking in Bethel is probably not interested in Clifton, and vice versa, right? So I make sure that they can actually indicate which ones they're interested in. As you can see, name, phone number, email, move-in date, steady source of income, pre-tax monthly income, credit score if they know. Are you comfortable completing a background check, ever evicted, comfortable contacting previous landlord for reference, do you have any pets, anyone in the household smoke, do you have rent and first month's deposit available, and is anyone else going to be living with you? Why do you want to move? Sometimes they answer, sometimes they don't. I mean, I make all these requirements to answer. And then this was something that I added later on, because after 3 years later, after someone emailed me, I sent them an email blast, and they cussed me out saying they never gave me permission to contact them. So then I added this as because again, anyone who goes into my email funnel gets added to potential marketing campaigns as an agent. So I want to make sure that they are expressly giving me permission to contact them. So I put in that little, disclaimer. If you're not going to do any marketing, you may or may not need that. But anyway, this is obviously basic info. And the purpose of this is it pre-screens 90% of the things I'm looking for, right? So they're going to tell me right away if they're going to disqualify themselves as a tenant. And I make every single prospective tenant fill this out. No one goes to the next step in the process unless they fill this out. Everybody gets that. Now, if somebody sends me a Facebook message, a marketplace message, whatever, and says, hey, do you allow pets? I'll answer the question, and then I follow up with that automatic response, and I can actually see, I'm sure I can probably find, yep, here it is right here. I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't know if I can pull that up. I'll also post this in the chat, and then you guys can actually click that link too on your end, and you can see. But that what I just posted in chat there, that goes to every single person who contacts us right away in any format. Now, the cool thing that I used to be able to do with the business page is I could literally set that as an auto response. So literally, if someone messages me and says, hey, is this still available, right? I mean, that's what everyone says on Marketplace, right? You'll get 5,000 of those. Hey, is this still available? 5 minutes after you post it. But whatever. So that would auto, I could get 100 messages, 500 messages, and they all get that back right away. That sucks. Now I can't do that. I have to manually go in and, my assistant and I manually go back and actually, respond to people. But all we do is copy and paste that, right? We literally just hit paste, 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 paste. So it makes it very simple. And, I used to I remember every single time I get a message from a tenant, 7 years ago, I would sit there and have a 15-minute conversation with every single one of them. And you can do the math on, if you have a popular property where you get 1,000 contacts, which has happened, that's all you're going to do is spend your time answering those messages, right? If you guys have any questions at any point, feel free to jump in. I'll kind of answer them as I go. But that's step 2 of the process, right? So we do our marketing, we start getting leads. The next step, we are doing the auto response message, and we answer any common questions if they have it. I try to make my listings as detailed as I can because I don't want to answer the same stupid questions over and over and over. So maybe let me see if I can find that. Description. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't know how big it is, but let me see if I can zoom in on that. Okay.
Do you actively update your descriptions and stuff if you get a bunch of questions?
Well, like I said, I try. Here's the problem is that 90% of people don't read, right? So like every question in here, I get asked by half the people that contact me. They just don't read it. That's just how it is. They'll say, hey, is there laundry, or is there, whatever, laundry in each apartment? Like that's a question I'll get. Hey, do you allow pets? Hey, how much income do I need to make? Whatever, right? All that's in there, and they don't look at it. It is what it is. But I'm just saying, make sure it is in there, because at least that'll eliminate some of the stupid questions you'll get, right? So all of this, especially when you start scaling it out, and you get to 50 units, 100 units, whatever, like this is invaluable, because now you're talking about literally saving hours, tens of hours, hundreds of hours when you do your leasing. Like, we have this down to a science, to the point where, like, from the time we post a listing until the lease is signed, I maybe spend an hour of work, right? And obviously, again, my assistant, does a lot of the physical meeting and things like that. But me personally, I spend about an hour of communication, and that's what you want to get it down to. All right, I think that's all I had on that. Again, take good pictures, make good descriptions. So we get leads, we answer the questions, they fill out this questionnaire, right? Okay, so now the next step, I go to this questionnaire, and I'm going through and I'm pre-screening everybody. So my criteria, which is just a knockoff of, if anyone's read the Brandon Turner rental book. Oops. If anyone's read that book, they've probably seen this paper, right? It's got all of his stuff he put in the book. This is a free form you can download from that book. I did tweak this a little bit to meet specifically what I do. Like, I think some things I put in here, pets over 40, 2 people per bedroom. I put that in. That's a HUD guideline. So if anyone doesn't know that, that is a federal, you don't have to follow that, but the HUD does stipulate that a 1-bedroom max occupancy based on HUD guidelines is 2 people. So you can specifically not rent to somebody because there's going to be 3 or more occupants for a 1-bedroom, if that makes sense. So let's say it's a single parent and a kid, you would have to allow that for familial status. If it is a mom, a dad, and a baby, or mom and boyfriend and baby, or whatever, you can then specifically exclude them based on the size of the apartment. So just know that if you don't know that. But again, I put all that in here. And the reason why I do all of this, that everything we've talked about so far, is I don't want people spending 40, 50 bucks for a background check if I know there's 0 chance they're going to get approved. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste their money. The quickest way you're going to start getting a ton of negative Facebook reviews or a ton of negative, media or whatever, is by having 100 people pay for a background check and you don't pick any of them. Okay. And the problem is, every single tenant thinks you're getting that money and putting it in your pocket, which isn't the case, but that's what they all think. I've had to explain that hundreds of times. So the reason why I showed you this, that leads to step 3. Step 3, they're going to get a email follow-up if they meet the criteria that we just talked about. Okay. So monthly income 3 times rent. I want to make sure that they're going to allow us to do a background check. If they say no, okay, cool, no problem. We're not talking to you. Evicted. I don't do any evictions. This is yes or no. I don't really care too much about that, but obviously we want to be able to contact previous landlords if we can. Obviously pets, we just want to know the truth. I don't rent to any smokers. They say, yes, I smoke, they're out. If they don't have the money, they're out. If they say, it's a 1-bedroom apartment, and they say, my mom, my cousin, my sister, my niece, my dog, whatever, and you got 6 people in a 1-bedroom apartment, they're out. And like, believe it or not, like, why do you want to move? This is actually you would be shocked by the answers that you get in this. Like, I've literally had people say, my boyfriend was beating me up, so I shot him and I had to flee town, and now I'm moving to Cincinnati. Like, I mean, that's a, exaggerated example, but my point is people will give you the absolute craziest explanations of why they want to move. I've literally had people put in here, check, no, I've never been evicted, and I'm currently getting evicted from my apartment, so I had to move out. You know what I mean? It's like people will put the dumbest things you've ever seen on there. I had a bed bug infestation and now I want to move out, whatever, right? I mean, it's like the craziest stuff. So that's why we put it on there, because it gives us a lot of good information. The things I look for, like positive things, a lot of things I see, especially with like younger people, are, first time renter, I'm trying to move out of my parents' house. I need a 2-bedroom, I need more space. I just got a new job, I'm relocating to Cincinnati, whatever, right? I mean, those are like normal, healthy type of tenant answers that you want to look for. So any questions on that? I think that's kind of all the particulars. Oh, and like, so if they don't give us an email, like that, they're out, because that is our next step. We only contact by email for that step 3. So like, I've had a lot of people put in here 1, 2, 3, and then, I mean, we just can't contact them. So
Hey,
let me find here. Go ahead.
Quick question.
Yep.
Do you post signs physically on your property when you have
Never.
a vacancy?
Never. And I have a very specific reason, because I only collect rent from tenants we place online. I don't collect any physical rent checks or cash or money orders. And I found very early on that everyone who rents by sign wants to pay with cash or money order or check.
Yeah. And I made the mistake of doing that once. And since I've gone to this, like, if they can't have a smartphone or internet access or whatever,
right?
Yeah, I got every sketch ball when I put a sign out, and I'll never do that again. I was just curious.
Yeah, and I had like tenants calling me. It's just not a good, not a good thing. I'm trying to find where there we go. That should be it. So step 3 is an email blast, okay? And you'll kind of get you'll start to pick up on the pattern here, that everything we do, we want to do it at volume, because that's how you weed out the things that are going to waste your time. I'm trying to find like an email blast. I'm trying to find this. It'd be a check this. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. All right, so if you look at this top email, let me zoom in a little bit. This is another email blast we send out. Everybody see that? And this has been updated probably since then. This is obviously a little bit older one, but basically it's a generic, boilerplate statement. I say, look at the attached qualifications. And again, these are people that were already pre-screened, right? So we've already went through and we just copy and pasted every single one into the blind carbon copy, right? So sometimes I have 100 people on this list that we're sending this email to, and they don't see the people that we're sending it to. We blind carbon copy. I tell them the qualification list, I attach it. Do you have any questions? Apartment's available on whatever day. The application fee is whatever it is. And I'll go into that. Some of the websites are different and we use them for different reasons. And I'll show you that. If you want to show a schedule showing, reply to this email. If you want to go ahead and apply, then we put in our actual formal application link. And we tell them the first approved applicant place a deposit gets placed in the vacant apartment. Now, this number is going to change. Each website has a little bit different fee structure. And so whatever we're using is going to have that. I also, typically when we're doing our initial email blast, we have an open house scheduled. So I do not do any one-on-one showings ever. And I could tell all the horror stories with that. But when I first started as a brand new landlord, I showed my first apartment like 10 times to unqualified tenants and I didn't place any of them. And you can imagine I'm driving 30 minutes each way, spending an hour of my time driving home, and I didn't place anybody. So now we don't do any one-on-one showings. Every single showing we do is an open house. So we set up a 2-hour window, and I can count on one hand how many times we've had to do more than one open house to place a qualified tenant. Now, the way the demand was the last 2 years with COVID, and people were literally fighting tooth and nail to get an apartment, and there's so much demand and such a little inventory, I don't think we even had a single open house. Every single person we placed was sight unseen. They did the application, they paid the money, and they literally said, yes, I'll take it, send us a deposit before we ever even met them face to face, before they even placed, before they even got to see the unit. That happened 90% of the time during the 2 years of the COVID rush. So now we're getting a little bit more back to like a normal market, and we're doing more open house styles. But the last open house we did, we probably had 15 people RSVP from this email blast, right? And like, so to give you some numbers, I think on the Clifton one, we had 30 or 300 messages. We probably had 100 pre-qualified tenants that we sent this email blast to. From there, we probably had 15 people contact us to RSVP for the open house. And on that one, we gave the date, like, hey, open house is this day and time. And then from the 15 that came, and then let's say 15 RSVP, we probably had like 6 or 7 show up, which is why we do this. As I'm, now you're starting to see the numbers, why we do everything in bulk. And of the 6 or 7 who did the open house, we ended up signing 3 leases because we had 3 that were going to be available the next month. So obviously that was another reason why, we're trying to lease multiple units at a time. But this is step 3 in the process. Step 4 is the open house. Or again, if you get somebody who wants to go ahead, if they're serious, they're going to go ahead and spend the money. If they really want your unit and you did everything up to this point right, they're going to go ahead and pay for the application. They're going to go ahead and do their background check. And then you can even potentially get them to pay the deposit before you even show it. You know what I mean? That happened a lot during COVID. So let's go to the application phase, right? So you send these out to all your prospective tenants. And I don't know, let's see if I can pull one up here from an old one. I think these expire, so I don't know if this is still going to let me see it or not. Let's look. All right, so this is like, okay, so apartments.com, we use this on every single property except for the 28 unit. Again, because of the unit limit. So apartments.com, we do all of our applications, background checks, tenant screening, and rent collection, except for the 28 unit. That one we use through Turbo Tenant. So you can see basic information, contacts, do they have any pets, contact info, income information. Both Turbo Tenant and apartments.com, they'll let you upload data, documents, pay stubs. So the one thing so once we have an application, the thing we separately request is a copy of your ID or driver's license and your last 2 pay stubs, because we want to be able to verify everything they're telling us. We also want to verify that the person we end up going to meet to sign the lease is who they say they are and is who matches their background, right? That way they don't have their cousin doing their background check and then they're signing the lease. So that's something we do to verify that. This guy or girl didn't upload any documents, so they don't have to. Again, we email them and we get this their email as well. Credit report. You can view the full report. Criminal reports. This is nothing found. That's good. Evictions, nothing found. That's good, right? And all of these are very similar. Zillow, apartments.com, Turbo Tenant, they're all very, very similar systems. So kind of once you get familiar with them, you'll understand all of them. So like I said in my email, the first approved tenant then has the option to place the deposit. At that point, we're going to have a conversation, whether that's text, email, phone call. We're going to say, okay, what is your move-in date you want? We give them up to, once they're approved, we give them up to 14 days. Again, that comes right out of the Brandon Turner book, the managing rental property book. I like that idea. It makes sense. That way they're not dragging it out. You're not dragging it out. Now, again, there's exceptions, right? Like, student rentals, I'm leasing out 8 months in advance. That's a little bit different. But like on a typical regular rental, we give them 14 days to move in, because, we don't want to keep losing days to vacancy. Obviously, if they want to move in this weekend, great, right? So then again, you're having an approved tenant. If they give you references, we try to call references and do the checks. I'll be honest, when probably my first 10 background checks I did, I called every single reference and tried to, and I would even wait till I talked to every single one before I would approve somebody. As I've scaled up and gotten, more properties and more units, I've gotten way more lax on that. And the other thing I kind of found doing it is that, like, they're not putting people on here who are going to say bad stuff about them. Like, they're either not going to put somebody, or whoever is on the other side of the phone. I mean, let's put it this way. I called probably 100 people, and I never once had a single negative thing said about anybody. So, take it with a grain of salt. I don't get overly hung up on the references. I've heard a lot of other, investors talk about how important it is, and I get it. But again, sometimes there are months where we're placing 10 units, and it's like, I'm not calling 50 references for 10 units. I don't care, and knock on wood, so far, I haven't had an issue with it.
I've got a quick question on that. So actually today I got a application come in, and everything looks pretty good, but she gave me I don't know if these people think they have to put down a past landlord reference, and that's story, but I think this girl thought that. She put down a name and a number on there, which was easily Facebook. Could search on Facebook that name and number and see that it's just a friend of hers, like just a friend. Like
Yeah, that's not surprising.
I still did my due diligence. I still called it. I did the old Brandon Turner trick where I asked if they had any available units, and she was quick on her feet and was really good answering all the questions. But it was funny because I would ask her a question, and I'd be like, well, what was the address of the place that she was renting? And she'd be like, oh, give me 1 minute. And time would go by, and then I'd hear her phone buzz, and then she yeah. And so otherwise it's a good application, besides the fact that now I know that this girl is willing to lie and put a friend down as her reference. And I was just curious what you guys think about that. Is that a major red flag where it's just like, I wouldn't do it?
In my opinion, it's kind of human nature. I mean, how many of us have applied for a job where we put a friend, a relative, an uncle, family member down? I mean, I don't know. Let's put it this way. I was a cop for 10 years. Every department I applied for, I put other cop buddies down that I knew liked me and were going to say the right things about me. And I knew it was going to be people that they would know. Right. So, I mean, it's all a game. I don't know. I personally wouldn't get too hung up on it if everything else looked great. But if you're already on the fence for any reason, then I would just pass. But, if she's got no evictions, good credit, good income, good history, no criminal issues, I probably wouldn't be overly upset about it. But again, the reason why I bring this up is, like, again, you want to look at everything in a long-term view, right? You might only have a couple properties right now, a couple tenants, a couple units. But if you plan on self-managing and scaling, you have to look at this as what is going to work at 100 units, 200 units, or whatever your goals are. Or if you're planning on turning it over to property management, you don't have to deal with this stuff. That's what they get paid for. But I think if you get good at this stuff, it's pretty simple. You can obviously save, 10% or more of your gross rents. So, I think a lot of people struggle with this aspect of investing. I mean, this is probably the most common complaint I hear from my clients on the real estate side is like, I'd love to buy, I'd love to buy a couple more properties, but I just can't, I'm so sick of dealing with bad property managers. I'm sick of dealing with, bad tenants. I'm sick of dealing with, XYZ. And it's like, you can do almost all of this remotely, right? Like, again, I couldn't even tell you the last time I met a tenant. And so just because I happen to live within 30, 40 minutes of my properties doesn't mean I couldn't do this in, on the other side of the country or world. Right. So, again, I think this is a sticking point for a lot of investors, especially as they scale up. And I don't think it has to be that way. And I'm not saying what I do is perfect. It may not be perfect for everybody. But again, I went from spending probably 50 hours to place my first sets of tenants, to less than 1 hour of my time. And it's very cheap. I pay my assistant a few hours of time. Let's just say less than $100 to place each of my tenants, as far as salary for my assistant. So, I mean, it's like, this is scalable if that's what you want to do. Okay. So I think we left off on, they get approved, right? Did their application. then I go in, we set up a lease signing date. So my system is if they want to see it at an open house, then we meet them at the open house. If they're going to take it sight unseen, then we collect that deposit, before we take it off market. Until we have that deposit in hand, we're still, contacting tenants, screening tenants. And then the next time we see them will be at their lease signing, which is in person at the property. So that's it. So at that time, we have 2 copies of the keys made. We have 1 mailbox key if there's a mailbox, which most of them are. And so what they have to do by their lease signing date or time is they either need to pay online their first month's rent. So we charge a full first month's rent for every tenant. I don't care if you move in on the 30th of December, you're paying a full month's rent. And then on the 1st of January, you're only going to pay a prorated rent for the 2 days or whatever. That's how we do it. We always collect that full deposit and full first month's rent. That way you don't have somebody moving in paying you $10 for rent, and then all of a sudden on the 1st, you're not getting your money, right? So we don't do that. And then they get everything they need. They do a walkthrough. I used to use that that form where you check off any issues. I found that it never really seemed to, the couple times I had issues, it didn't really seem to make a difference, because it's like if the tenant says that there's an issue that we didn't know, we didn't see, and they didn't see, they're either going to fix it or they're not, or we're going to take out their deposit or not. Again, I used to do that with every tenant. Another thing I found that never really seemed to matter a whole lot. But if it's like a turnover where somebody's moving out, then we do take photos of every unit. And if we're holding any money out of deposit, we do the deposit return form where we notate, hey, we're holding this much out. You have to get, that's an Ohio rule. You have to give a line item as to what expenses were caused, which are then being held from deposit. So we do that. That's just a legal requirement. And then obviously in Ohio, you have 30 days to mail back whatever their balance of their deposit is. So that's kind of our system. As far as maintenance requests, we allow maintenance requests in one of 3 ways. So it used to be like mainly just by text. So now if someone does contact our phone number with a maintenance request, we have an automated, or not automated, but we have a prompted text response that gets sent back to them, and that leads to another Google form. So let me pull up the Google form here. And yeah, so this is it. So that's kind of how we used to do it. We've gotten away from that a little bit, because now apartments.com and Turbo Tenant, which is how we collect rent, they have a form on there that they can send a maintenance request. And Turbo Tenant is kind of cool because it allows you to okay, so like shower issues, right? You guys see that? So this here, they can send us a description. They can even send photos, which I like. And then I can literally send a work order. I can email this to one of my guys, one of my employees, and say, hey, and it just sends them a copy of it, right? The other way, so we also text, a lot of times we'll just kind of text the synopsis of it or a picture of it or whatever. And then I have my assistant schedule time with the tenant, and then we always do a follow-up too. So like, if John, one of my employees, John, is supposed to go fix the shower on 4 p.m. on Thursday, at 6 p.m. on Thursday, we send that follow-up message. Hey, did everything get fixed? Are you happy with everything? We try to do some of that quality control to make sure. And another thing I like about Turbo Tenant is that when they pay their rent every single month, it kind of gives them a survey. And I don't know if, let me see if I can see that on here. I don't know if that's something I can see or not. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it gives us a survey where you can basically get some feedback from them. Like I've had people say, hey, I'm having a problem with this person, or hey, I might be a day late on my rent or whatever. It gives you a chance, and then you can message them back. So it's kind of cool. It helps you keep in touch with your tenants, which as you scale becomes difficult. It is very difficult for me to stay in touch with so many tenants. And I like to have that personal touch. Obviously I'm still, like kind of a private owner landlord. I have some employees now and partners on some of my properties, but it's like, I think that if you find good tenants and you keep them happy and you're a good landlord, that's going to give you the best ROI on your properties. But yeah, that's basically our system. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. But that's kind of our process. Again, we've kind of refined that for the last, 6-7 years. What questions do you have? Concerns, anything you guys are doing differently that you guys want to add?
I like your processes. So I think I'm a step behind everything you're doing. So on your, like I do the pre-qualification, but I was actually setting up showings if they passed the pre-qualification, not the application. So I like the actually having them approve. Because I'm the same way. I felt bad that I didn't want, a whole bunch of people paying 20 or 30 bucks to do an application if they weren't even pre-qualified.
Well, so let me be clear. We don't make them do a full application before the open house. That's only if they choose to. But because it is a time sensitive game, I would say 75-80% of our tenants did do the application before they saw it, because that gets them, because like let's say the first open house is Thursday, right? And we're having these email change Monday, Tuesday, and they go ahead on Tuesday and do their application. I can go ahead and get their background totally done and they're approved. And then they want to come through Thursday, even if 50 other people are there, which we've had happen, they're already approved. They can bring a check, a money order right there, or they can literally, so at the Clifton one we just did, all 3 of our tenants we placed literally sent a deposit standing there in the apartment online through TurboTenant. They sent a deposit, and then I get a verification right there saying, this so-and-so spent this deposit, right? So they don't have to be fully pre-approved, but it does allow them that escalation of them if they're serious. And to me, it separates the people that are just kind of looking versus like 2 of our tenants were people literally on foreign exchange moving back into town that week, and they had that weekend to move into an apartment or they're going to be homeless. So it's like, they were great tenants, no problems, but they had to be into a place that weekend or they were SOL. So, that kind of separates them from the people that are out just kind of moseying around.
I have a question about the prorated thing you touched on. So, for example, say if someone toured my house tomorrow and decided they want to move in on Friday.
Right.
I don't know.
The 27th. Yep.
Yeah, the 27th. So that's what, like 4 days of rent. So the way that you would work that is,
so the way I do it is that would be 5. So they're moved, so they pay rent on the day they move in. That's the way we do it. And I think something I failed to mention. So before they sign their lease, they have to have utilities on in their name, and they have to have already paid that rent. Like we don't let them sign and get keys unless both of those things have happened. Like it doesn't have to have already physically transferred, but if they haven't contacted Duke, and I get emailed and text notified right away when it comes. So like, I don't know if you guys are on this, but with Duke here in Cincinnati, you can have what they call the auto landlord. And basically, as soon as a tenant moves out, it goes right back in your name without you having to call them and sit on the phone for an hour. And as soon as the tenant takes over, it goes in their name and then reverts back to you when they move out, whatever. But I get notified both ways. So as soon as it goes in my name or out of my name or the company name, whatever, I get notified right away. So anyway, all that has to happen before they can get keys and sign their lease. But anyway, back to your question.
They would, and so whatever day they moved in, you would get the deposit, or before they sign the lease, you're getting your deposit, and the day they move in, you're getting your first month's rent.
Full month's rent. Yes, exactly.
Full month's rent. And then the first, then they would pay for the 5 days in January.
Right. So let's just use an example real quick so people can kind of understand the numbers on this. So let's say your rent was 1,000. Okay, there's 31 days in January. So we're going to take 1,000 divided by 31. That's 32.25 rounded per day. That's your daily rent. Take that by 5 days in January. That's 161.29. I just round either up or down to this nearest cent. So that's 161.29. And that is going to be the prorated rent due on February 1st. But on January 27th, they're paying me 1,000, and they would have already had to pay their deposit to be at this point, because if not, we would still be in the process of renting it out to someone else.
Gotcha.
And that's the way I done it. I've had a couple times as a new landlord where I wanted to be nice and help people out, and I never once had a time where it didn't screw me. Like I would say, oh yeah, that's fine. You pay your prorated today. It's $70. Pay your 1,000 on the first comes, and they don't have the money. That happens every single time without fail. So I don't do that anymore. Now, in my lease, I have a 5-day grace period. So they're due on the 1st. They're graced until the 5th. And that's everybody. I don't care what day you move in, because that's why we do the prorated. That way they're always due on the 1st. It keeps it simple. I know everybody's paying on the 1st. On the 6th, they get a $50 late fee. That's just a flat fee for all my apartments. And I think our storage units are 25 or 30, but our apartments are 50. And then it's 10 a day after that. And that's all written into the lease. So like if you're late on, let's say you're due on the 1st, you don't pay till the 10th, you're going to have 4 days late plus your 50 on the 6th. So I don't charge the 10 on the 6th. That's the 50. 7, 8, 9, 10, you get 40 more. So you're $90 late on top of your rent, and that's due on the 10th. Typically, if they don't pay by the 10th, usually the following week they're getting their 3-day notice. So usually if they're going to pay, they pay by then. And then basically once they get to, and another thing I do that may not every landlord does, and I didn't have to deal with any of this until I bought the 28 unit, never had an eviction, knock on wood, but recently I've had a bunch. There's just a lot of crappy tenants in that building. But so let's say, let's use next month as an example, right? So they didn't pay on the 1st. Let's say they get their 3-day notice on the 13th, right? That's probably about when it would really happen. And so in Ohio, you have to have 3 full calendar days after you post a 3-day notice, pay or quit. So that would be all the way out to the 16th. So they have 13, 14, 15. On the 16th, that is the soonest I could file the eviction. Now, the way I do it, if I don't have that payment by the 16th, and certainly if I haven't had any communication, sometimes if they're like, hey, I get paid Friday, I promise you'll have it Friday, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they still got to pay their late fees, but I may not have the lawyer file on the 16th, if that makes sense, right? But the way we do it, if we don't hear anything and you don't pay on the 16th, in that example, email goes out to the lawyer. I send him a copy of the pay or quit. And on the, and he's at the lawyer we use here. I mean, he's at court every day. So on the 16th, he's filed. And once we file, it's over. Like you can technically take rent after that and cancel and all that. Now it's like, if I had to go to the point where I'm already having to pay the lawyer $150 or whatever, I'm done. Like you're out. I don't care. After that, there's nobody who's ever got to that point where we kept them. So once you're in that process and we're going to court, we just go to court. And like the judge will always say, even once you grant an eviction, the judge does, they'll literally say, you can choose to take payment now, because every tenant, once they go to court and they get evicted, they're like, oh, I got the money. It's like, if you cause that many problems, we had to get all the way to a completed eviction, you're out. All right, what other questions you guys got?
Joe, what are you guys using for getting the comps on your rent? Are you guys doing Rentometer?
No, I hate Rentometer because it's just, it takes data from too wide of a space.
Right.
Yeah, I can run through that real quick. We're probably going to do a separate call another day, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it right now, but I'll run through it real quick. But the way we do rent comps, let me show my screen again. So I like Zillow a lot. I just, it's a very user-friendly. Hold on, now I gotta show my screen stuff. Very user-friendly system. But here, who's got a property in Cincinnati? I'll pick on yours. Somebody give me a neighborhood or something.
You can go Pleasant Ridge, Joe.
Pleasant Ridge. All right, let's do Pleasant Ridge. Cool. All right, can you guys see that? I take the zip there.
45.
45237.
213.
213.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's say, yeah, there we go. Cool. All right, so we got let's say we had a property here, right? Right on Montgomery Road somewhere, main drag. Okay, so I'm gonna look at these right off Montgomery Road. These are obviously updated. $995, $1195 for 2-bed. Okay. let's say our building's a 1-bed that we're buying. There's or what are these apartments? Yeah, these apartments. Okay, so you got 2 beds with balconies, a little bit nicer. Those are 1,500, 1,200 square feet. Look like they're pretty updated. What do we got here? 1 bed, 1,200. Man, rents have gone way up in Pleasant Ridge. All right, so here's kind of the level 2 though. Here's what's more important to me. You see the rents out there, you see the comps. 11 days on market, they've had 20 contacts and 3 applications. That's not a ton, but if that was 20 days listed and 5 contacts and 0 applications, then I know this price for this rent. And look at these pictures. I mean, these pictures suck. I mean, this dude's got a ladder in here, right? I mean, these are really crappy pictures. But the fact that they're getting that many contacts is actually a positive sign. Because if I'm looking at a 1-1 that's 800 feet or whatever, right around the corner, then I know that this market rent's pretty close, right? So to me, Zillow is probably the most accurate, but let's say you couldn't find any, you can also go to apartments.com. I like apartments.com as well. And the reason why I like these is because Rentometer, like I said, is a conglomerate of data. But the problem is they'll take a 3-bed, a 1-bed, a Class A, a Class D, and they'll take all that in one neighborhood or zip code. And like, what market are you in? I forget.
I'm up in Columbus.
You're in Columbus. Okay. So Columbus is probably similar to Cincinnati in where like, you go 2 blocks that way and you go from $100,000, $50,000 crack houses to, $500,000 houses. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, that's how the city's chopped up. So Cincinnati's the same way. So that's why you don't like Rentometer, because it takes all of those in one, right?
Okay.
And it doesn't discriminate if it's a $500,000 house or a $50,000 house, and that's why I don't like it. But again, apartments.com, same thing, right? So we'll take same zip code. And boom, so you got some more here. Okay, and now this is getting in Kennedy Heights. So these are probably going to be a little bit cheaper. Yep. I mean, that's 1,100. Pretty good shape. But this to me is way more accurate to get comps, because you're actually getting, just like, like if you're pricing a property, same idea, like you're looking at the MLS or whatever. You're getting to see square footage, layout, quality. So that's the way I do it. And for ideally, like if I'm trying to buy a property in like a neighborhood I don't really know, I want at least 3 good comps. I want to, just like if I was comping a house as an agent, if I don't have 3 good comps that are similar amenities, size, age, and then quality, that's a red flag to me, because I don't, not necessarily a red flag. It's just, you don't have enough data to make a educated decision. You're kind of guessing, and you may be right, but you may be wrong. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Joe, is that essentially what you had to do with your Bethel property starting out? Is just kind of throw something out there?
Bethel actually had a decent amount of comps. Surprisingly, there was a decent amount of inventory, more than I would have ever thought. And there's a lot of newer properties out there. And I think I ended up talking to somebody else in the Joe Fairless group that had a property out there where they were getting way higher rents than I thought. So I had had a couple good sources there. And obviously, Kevin, that's another good way. It's like if you can find a local investor that has property in that neighborhood, that's a really good way to get accurate data also. Okay. All right, cool. Any other questions? I know that was a ton of information. I tried to go through it as quickly as I could. But if you guys have any other questions, feel free to jump in here.
Yeah, Joe, real quick. Have you had any issues with prospective tenants claiming fair housing problems or anything like that, where they're saying it's not fair, or you've had any complaints come against you or anything like that, or seeing eye dogs, or some crazy stuff like that, where they try to bring something into the equation?
So yeah, I mean, I've had a few issues. So part of like why we do all the pre-screening is that I have no idea who anybody is, right? Like now I will say Facebook, obviously Facebook, if they do come through us from Facebook, we can see their Facebook profile. And obviously, we check that to make sure that, they're like, here's a prime example. I've had people where their profile pictures them, holding up 2 guns or holding a bong or whatever. Like, that shows me that they're probably not going to be a great tenant. But we're not discriminating against them because they're a woman or Hispanic or black or white or whatever, right? I mean, but Facebook does give us a lot of that more, you know, information you wouldn't have otherwise. But the way we make the decision is that everybody goes through that same exact criteria. So we adhere to fair housing. And that's why it's also important for you guys to make a strict policy. Like everything I talk to you about, that is our policy. You know, even if you're just a single landlord with a duplex, you need to have a policy, because then if you ever are accused of fair housing, you can go back. If you ever have to go to court, you can say, look, these are the last 7,000 tenant applications we've had. We did the exact same process for every one of them. I didn't rent to him or her because she was white or black or whatever. I picked them because they had the highest income, the best credit score, no evictions, blah, 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 whatever your criteria is, right? And you want to stick to that. When you start making exceptions, that's when you run into issues. But as far as specifically with me, I had just recently, I had a tenant who was on a voucher program who wanted one of our renovated units. Never met this guy, never spoke to this guy on the phone. I texted with him. I knew his name. That was it. And when he wanted to get that, so basically he wanted to just move into that new apartment, you know, so he was in a very outdated apartment, wanted to move into the new one. And as soon as I told him, hey, you were basically an inherited tenant, anybody we place into these new apartments has to go through our entire process. And I already knew, because he was on a voucher, he wouldn't be qualified because we don't accept vouchers outside of inherited tenants. And I basically explained that to him. And then, you know, he basically accused me of being racist. He was a black guy. Again, didn't even know that, but whatever, he was. And then he's like, you know, you just don't like black people. You don't want to rent to me because I'm black, all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, never met you. No idea what race you are. I'm just telling you that this is our process. Again, like we were talking about, A through Z. If you are qualified, then we have no problem renting to you and placing you in the other unit. If you are not qualified, which you wouldn't be, then it's not going to happen. And I'm sorry. You can stay in your apartment as long as you want. We're not going to kick you out. But that is our process for any new tenant we place. And I've never had a problem from anybody I've placed. It's always been tenants I've inherited. Trying to think if there's any other issues. Like I said, I've had tenants who like I had a guy who got custody of like 3 kids and he was in a 1-bedroom apartment, and that was a little bit different. Obviously, I'm not going to like go in and evict him because he just got custody of 3 kids, but I was like, hey dude, like we don't allow more than 2 occupants per bedroom. You got 4 occupants now. I'm sorry. I think he had a girlfriend at the time too. So it was like 5 occupants in a 600 square foot apartment. I'm like, look, you need to make arrangements to, you know, find yourself a more spacious place here. And he, you know, he understood. It wasn't like a big issue, but you know, I gave him like 6 months and he moved, you know, he found a 2-bedroom and moved out or whatever. So, but no, I haven't had any like major issues. No. But again, it comes back to, like I said, you want to have very strict policies. So like, and it was kind of like cool is I've had a lot of like friends and family who have reached out because they need, like for example, I have a couple of like family friends who's I've either placed like a family member or one of them I even placed their elderly parent in my apartments. And like, you know, of course, friends, I think they kind of have that expectation of like, you know, hey, market rent might be 800. Can you give it to us for 600? And I straight up tell them, which is the truth, but it's also, you know, for my own reasons. I'm like, look, market rent's 800 and that's what the rent is, because if I give you a discount, then that could be construed as a fair housing discrimination against any of my other tenants who are paying market rent. And I tell them that straight up. First thing they say, hey, you got anything available? Yep, this is the rent. And I tell them right away, that's the rent. I can't change it. If I change it, I could be considered discrimination. And that's the truth. But also, you know, I don't want to, you know, give them $200 off rent either. So hopefully that answers your question.
Hey, Joe, I got one, and I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyways. Do you let your tenants make any repairs?
Not generally. So I have one guy who is lived in this building I bought for like 30 years. And he's like kind of this self-proclaimed, you know, property manager, handyman, whatever you want to call him. Every once in a while he'll call me about like a minor issue, and he'll be like the hallway lights, like we have this old light fixture that we need to replace and just never got around to it that takes bulbs. And he'll call and say, hey, we're missing 3 bulbs in the hallway light. I can go to the store today and pick them up. And I'll say, hey, that's cool, man. I'll, you know, just tell me how much I owe you and I'll take it off your rent. So we've done that. You know, he cuts the grass and so there's that building has garages. So he doesn't pay me for the garage, but he does all the grass and salt. and that pays for his garage. So like that kind of thing, but typically no. 99% of the time I would say no. Because it's just a liability thing, and especially if they don't know what they're doing, they're going to cause more issues. But that, if you're going to do it, that's the way I would do it. I would never pay them labor because now you're creating liability. And I would never, I would only reimburse them for material if they're willing to do it. So basically they're volunteering to do it and you're reimbursing them. That's how I would personally run it.
Thank you.
Cool. Anything else?
Just a question around, you said you're using, was it Turbo Tenant to, what are you using to collect rent?
Yep. So for all of my other properties, I use apartments.com, and they pay their deposit, they pay their rent through there. And Turbo Tenant I use for the 28 unit, but they're almost identical systems. They're just web-based, browser based.
Yeah. How's the return on getting the money back to you? So I use Rent Ready, and it takes like 15 days for Rent Ready to post to my account.
It's not, I don't think it's quite that long, but like if they pay on the 1st, I usually get it by like the 10th. But yeah, I mean, it's about probably 10 days by the time transfers, etc.
Yeah. And then have you had any issues with so I've had a couple issues with a tenant who didn't have sufficient funds when they paid their Rent Ready thing. So Rent Ready actually deposited the money into my account, charged me $2.50 and pulled the money back out.
Yeah, so apartments.com does not charge landlords anything.
Okay, that's I didn't think Rent Ready did either until it just happened recently. So
I don't think I've had that happen, but yeah, they don't charge anything. And the only time they charge a tenant is if a tenant wants to pay with a credit card.
Yeah, right.
If they use ACH, yeah, if they use ACH transfer or debit card, then it's free for them too. Okay. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it sounds like you might want to switch to apartments.com because it's fast.
Yeah, I mean, I started using Rent Ready because I got I've got the Bigger Pockets Pro account, so I got it free through that. And,
okay. Got you.
And I think before that I had Bigger Pockets had a discount where it was $1 for the year or something. So
gotcha.
So that's why I was using that. But yeah, that part has kind of frustrated me a little bit. It's fine for management of the units and everything, but the money structure is a little bit frustrating.
So Todd had a question in chat. So I have done a couple e-signings. Yeah, so I have Dotloop through my agent business. I just use that, but there's a lot of free e-signing programs out there. But yeah, I've had I think one of the foreign exchange students wasn't going to be in town like when he was supposed to move in, so he wanted to go ahead and get all that stuff done. So yeah, there's been occasions where I'll do e-signing. And typically what I do is I email them a copy of their lease like before we meet. That way they can go ahead and review it. That way when you're there, you're spending 15 minutes just hitting bullet points initially on each page. And a lot of times if they have a question, they'll hash it out before we actually get there. I've never had anybody refuse to sign or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely e-sign and not have to physically meet in person. There's a lot of ways to do it remotely. I mean, you could even have somebody drop like keys in a lockbox, give the code. I mean, a lot of what I've seen a lot of investors doing, especially on bigger properties, is they'll put like one of those like big key boxes in, and then you can keep copies of keys, you can drop off keys, pick up keys, whatever, which is kind of nice too if you're sending contractors out. Like if you're remote and out of state, I would highly recommend you get one of those key boxes installed. That way you can send a contractor over, give them a code, get the key for number 3 out, notify the tenant, and then you don't have to have anyone there other than your contractor, maintenance guy, or whatever. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of ways you could even make this more remote friendly than what I do. And that's what I would do if I wasn't local. All right, if we don't have any, I said that's Todd, sorry. But that's everybody. Okay, so I know Jordan had jump off, but I know Kevin, have you been on a call before?
I have, yep. A couple last year.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I haven't seen you in a while, so I'll have you go first. If you want to give us, if you can see in the chat, your monthly goals, any progress, any needs from the group.
All right. Obviously Kevin Jones up in Columbus, Ohio market. Born and raised in Cleveland though, so I've only been in Columbus 3 years. Learning this market, which I feel like I've pretty much picked it up pretty fast. It's pretty simple actually with the 270 loop and just figuring out fast what the in neighborhoods are, which areas are bad, as far as crime, goes. But so far so good. As far as investing, I know a bit about Cincinnati, but not a ton. But I know that the market, for the most part, is pretty strong and kind of having a resurgence, kind of how Cleveland is. So I definitely want to this year get more down in Cincinnati more, do more networking events, or just come down there for some meetups and actually like get out in the field and actually tour some of the neighborhoods down there, so that I can just do possibly all of Ohio, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati at some point. But I don't know a ton about Cincinnati as of yet. Years investing, we currently are house hacking a duplex here, but I would say I've honestly been in analysis paralysis for like maybe 5 years that I first really started studying real estate, listening to podcasts, getting on bigger pockets. So it's just now that I'm really trying to start taking some massive action, because you can only consume but so long before you actually do something about it. So yeah, not much as far as a portfolio. Short-term goals. So I'm in my last week of agent school. So come early February, I should have my license. I'll take the test. And with that, pretty much trying to go the traditional agent route and yes, sell market listings and, and just roll all commission into investing is pretty much my plan. I primarily want to get into multifamily apartments. So in another group, as far as trying to like learn syndications and teaming up with a few guys who are already doing it. So that's pretty much my plan with that. But that's about it.
Awesome, man. Well, congrats on the agent school. I know Todd's finishing his as well.
Sweet.
Todd, if you want to go next, you can.
Yeah,
pick up where
mine's
you left off.
pretty much. I wish I was in Kevin's shoes. I wish I only had a week left. Not there yet, but yeah, I'm just progressing on that, still chipping away at it, and just kind of trying to underwrite a couple properties a week, just staying abreast of the market here. That's about it.
How far out do you think you are from buying?
I could buy right now, but I would say I'd like to pad it a little bit. So probably maybe end of summer, fall, just to, I'd like to do something maybe a little more than a little more value add than I have in the past, where it was just paint and floors and fixtures, maybe try to find something at a steeper discount, get some experience there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So we'll see.
Are you looking for single family homes or are you multifamily?
Yeah, smaller multi.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's where I plan on starting as well. And 5, 10, 15, 20, something smaller, just get some experience and work a couple of those and organically and naturally move up to bigger communities. But a lot of the big time guys don't really even want to look at anything 5 to 15 units. They're like 50 minimum. So that's where the guys like us can come in, get base hits and clean all that up, so kind of my thought process.
Yep. Jake, you here? All right, DJ. Oh, Jake's back. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, kid.
No
What's been down
problem.
here and whatnot. But been listening. Yeah. My monthly goals are still to really dive in and do deal processing and understanding it. I've been working with Joe. We've been looking at some properties. Just got to find my right niche. Every time we go look, we're getting more of an understanding. My current needs from the group is just, if you guys find something, shoot my way. Anytime it comes across my filter that Joe set up for me, I'm processing it and I go through it. I'm looking at Zillow as well. I mean, that's really all it is. It's just a matter of waiting for it to the right one to come across that fits all the boxes for me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pick on you a little bit just because I think it's useful for everybody. Like what Jake and I've been finding, we've been looking at properties, like you said, and it's like a lot of times what you think you want as an investor ends up being not like the more you get into it and you're actually seeing it and touching it and feeling it, you're kind of like, man, this may not be exactly what I'm looking for. Jake, and if you don't mind, I can talk a little bit about it, but it's like I think he initially was looking for something but like more of a deeper rehab. And then like we kind of looked at some of those and I think the realization of like, wow, this is a big project that, you got jobs and kids and family and all this stuff going on. It's like, this may not really be a good fit for me right now, and again, just using that as an example, but I think every investor tends to have something in their mind that doesn't necessarily match up to reality sometimes. But like he's saying, every time we look at a property, we refine exactly what that perfect property looks for. You know what I mean? So anyway, it was just something interesting that would probably help all of you that are looking to buy and add a couple properties this year that,
So if you guys don't have kids or a family or anything of that nature, get some properties underneath you that need a little extra work, because I would have jumped on a fair bit of them already, but
Yeah.
I currently have a wife, a daughter, and another one on the way. So it's kind of getting smaller and smaller of a capability of me to do.
Yeah. And there's so many factors like that go into that decision making and how you refine them. And I know we talk about goals a lot in this group because I think that's one of the main factors. But like what I've seen as I've gotten more experience in investing is like I used to chase the deepest, darkest, ugliest property I could find because I wanted to make sure that I could pull all or most of my money out and get that 20-30% return. And I've found now, 6-7 years in, like I don't necessarily want to do that. You know what I mean? I don't need to necessarily pull all my money out. And if I can save 500 hours of my time, I'm just making up numbers, I'm willing to take a 10% return to get that time back because, as you get further along in your journey, your time becomes more valuable than the money in some cases. So it's a little bit of a nuance there, but it's like your criteria is going to shift, and like Gage is the youngest guy in the group. I think it's like, he's in the perfect position, like Jake's saying, to, go out and find that really, really ugly property that he can put a ton of time into because he doesn't have 5 kids and he doesn't have, mortgages and, just all this other things that come with being an older investor. So anyway, yeah, that's a very timely lesson that Jake and I are working on. All right, Jake, was there anything else?
Nope, just learning and living.
Awesome. All right, DJ.
Yep. So I'm on the other end of the age spectrum from Gage. So so this month I'm still educating on I am very interested in capital raising. So I'm on to the next book here for that. I've got about 10 pages left of that. I actually got a call from another guy that goes to the Bigger Pockets meetup yesterday, and we are going Saturday to look at a property, possibly partner on. It's a extreme value add duplex. So very excited about that. So we're gonna go pick up that. From the group, I don't know. I've been thinking about the partnership stuff, and I don't know if anybody has a good lawyer that can set up a partnership agreement. That would be
Yeah, I can connect you to one that did a couple of mine.
Okay, sweet. But yeah, that's it from my side.
Awesome. Yeah, and just one thing I want to touch on with the money raising thing. It's like people always look at like, okay, I'm going to raise money. They hear that and they're like, that means I'm going to syndicate and I'm going to go buy a 50 million. Like it does not have to be like that at all. like a model that I'm actually looking at, even you know, obviously I'm not the most experienced investor, but I've done it quite a bit of deals. I'm looking at a model where, because of the way the market is, and it's so difficult to find these large multifamilies, and it's so difficult to find ones that make sense. I'm looking at even just scaling out, whether it's single or like small multifamily, like let's say 1s, 2s to 4s, right? Scaling out where I'm buying those at volume by raising money and doing more of like portfolio, even if I don't necessarily buy it all from one seller, like, but buying 10 properties at a time, going in, rehabbing 10 of them, scaling out my construction team to do that, refining all of them, recycling the money to the investors. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at ways where I can raise the capital that I have available to me through investors or private lenders, and buying a lot of real estate, even if it's not, you know, a 50 or 100 unit, which is obviously what we would all love to buy. That's unfortunately the market's just not really giving it to us. And I don't want to sit here for another 3 years to wait to find the right 50 unit, 100 unit deal. So, you know, that's something I'm looking at. My point I'm getting at is like, it can be as small as $10, $50,000. It could be $50 million and everything in between. And you have to figure out, what is your niche? What is your expertise? How can you make, you know, raising money fit within your investment strategy? So, you know, just don't, keep your mind open to that, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Anything else, DJ?
No, I completely agree. And the more I read about the raising capital, you know, you read Joe Fairless's book and you're like, billions of dollars raised and stuff, and then you're reading these other ones, and it's exactly what you
Yeah,
just
it could be a $10,000 note for a rehab fund or whatever, you know, something that lets you accomplish it. I mean, that's all it is. You're just trying to accomplish a deal. It has to make sense and be win-win, and it can be as big or small as it needs to be for your situation. So yeah, that's really cool. It's definitely a strategy everyone needs to learn. All right, Gage.
Yeah. So I'm still just trying to get my bottom unit rented out right now. A lot of the lessons that you provided today will be helpful. I'll be able to implement those. Specifically the open house thing. I've been doing nickel and dimes pretty much like today. I showed it tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I'm going to show it before I get to work. I think I've got one set up for tomorrow at 5. Like, man, if I just consolidated them all to a 2-hour period on a Saturday, it would save everyone time, but specifically me. So getting that, and hopefully getting someone in here before February 1st. I've been reaching out to some banks and stuff, looking at refinancing. Right now, refinancing, the rates are higher than they've been since I've been trying to kind of look into this. So that's kind of discouraging a little bit, just seeing that. I think it was like 7.65% or something, and just extremely higher than last time I checked. So
yeah, you need a different lender, dude. That sounds really high right now, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, rural banks out here too. So yeah, so also looking to find some capital that's not as expensive, I guess. And then the third thing is, and what I could ask of y'all is, I've lived here my whole life, but I really don't know like the difference between the different sides of Cincinnati and the different neighborhoods. And I know, like you were saying earlier, like 1 minute you can be walking and throw a stone, and the next area you throw that stone to could be a completely different spot. Me, I don't know those things. I'm pretty ignorant to where those places are at. But I've still been looking and stuff on realtor.com, and I just don't know, okay, where's this in comparison, this property in comparison to this property? Because ultimately the next place that I do want to buy, I want to be able to do the things I'm doing now, which I run outside. Like, I want it to be safe because I'm going to be living there. So I want it to be, you know, a good community for me to go live in, as well as a place that I can fix up and rent. So just learning those Cincinnati communities and vetting those places is what I'm working towards. But yeah, overall, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Angela?
Yes, sir. So again, looking for my first small multifamily 2 to 4 units, do house hack it, and then free up my primary residence and rent it out. From a monthly goal standpoint, let's see what I got wrote down here. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad for the second time, so already finished that up. Finished The Power of One More earlier this month. Been trying to underwrite at least 5 properties a week, so we're on track for that as well. We're also on track for saving the $3,000 a month that I posted about a few weeks ago. So we've already achieved that this month. And I guess that I would consider it a second offer, even though it was kind of, I guess, you, Joe, talking to the agent on the one on East Walnut Hills, gave that a try. The most important next step is really to put that property under contract, right? And again, I'm not looking for anything special. I'm willing to make offers without looking at the properties. I just got to get something, and it's all about finding that deal, something that cash flows $200 per door after fixed expenses. And then as far as no needs from the group right now, of course, if you find a deal, send it my way, right?
Yeah, it's I mean, so what I'm seeing in the market in general is like it's inventory is just so low right now, like as low as I've ever seen it, because the problem is it was always the seller's market almost the last 5 years or so, but it's like it has become basically it's become a bad market for everybody in a sense. That's kind of the way a lot of people are looking at it. Buyers are pessimistic, sellers are pessimistic, so it's like it's just kind of everything's just kind of sitting still right now. I'm optimistic that things are going to pick up in the spring because rates are starting to come back down. They have receded a little bit. We don't know yet what the Fed's going to do on the next rate hike if they do one. Obviously, inflation numbers have continued trending down, which is good. That's all positive signs. But yeah, it's just slow right now. I mean, there's just not a lot moving. Sellers aren't selling, buyers aren't buying. I mean, there's just a lot like that. So that Norwood deal that I thought I was going to buy, they basically wasted all 3 of my inspection days, not allowing me to access the property. And they were just being really shady about it. And I'm like, I'm not buying a property if you're not gonna let me look at it, So I assumed there was some major issue with it. And it ended up being where they had like a backdoor offer that was higher. And I just saw today that it closed because they never, so basically after our contract expired, they never went active or pending again. It just stayed pending, and then they closed today, and they got like 24 grand more than what my contract price was. So the lesson I took from that, a couple things, is sometimes just because you lowball somebody and win doesn't mean you're really going to win, right? Like it's not a deal till it's closed. So like I had an $85,000 listing under contract at 40. Well, they obviously got another offer after mine, and they ended up getting 64. So had I gave them 50, I might have actually closed on it. And I don't really care. I mean, at the end of the day, I got a lot going on, so it's not the end of the world. But I'm just saying that, sometimes if it's not a win-win situation, then nobody wins. So that's kind of the lesson I took from it.
Yeah, that makes sense. The one comment that I was going to make too, going back to your comment about inventory. I mean, again, we really want that small multifamily, right? But we have also started looking at single family. I'm just keeping an eye on them, see if something that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially if it gets us closer to work, or even if it's just an investment property. I looked at a couple of them, keeping that option open as well. I'm just trying to keep all of my options open right now.
Yeah, and I think there is more opportunity in the single family space because here's the thing, anyone who has to sell right now is selling because they have to. Like, almost everybody you see listing is selling because they have to. So if they're selling a single family to like trade up in space or whatever, they are 100% willing to negotiate, especially if it's been sitting on market for a while or if it needs work. So yeah, I think that's smart. And worst case, like you said, single family, go in there, maybe fix it up a little bit, and a year from now, rent it out and do it again, right? I mean, it's the same,
Mhm.
you can do that, over and over and over. So
Hey, as long as I get 4 this year, I will be happy, right?
yeah, makes sense. Okay, so quickly, not a ton of updates for me. I got the 3 units leased out in January. I think I already mentioned that. We got 2 more in progress on the 28 unit. I'll have 1 more going vacant at the end of the month, so then we'll have 3 in process. Hoping to get the 2 in progress rented out by March. Every other unit is occupied, so that's good. 100% occupancy on the rest of the portfolio. Not buying anything right now like I thought I was, so that's, I guess probably a blessing in disguise. That would have been a big project that I don't necessarily have the bandwidth for. I'm still looking for deals, whether it's a small one or a big one. If a good deal comes along, I might try to take it on. I'm working on my personal home renovations. I actually put a nail through my foot today, so that was awesome. So my foot's all swelled up right now, and it's going to be sore for a little while, but I don't think there's any major damage other than the pain of putting like 3-inch nail through my foot. So that was fun. Don't wear gym shoes when you're renovating your house. I should know better, but not the first time I've done it either. Yeah, I think that's it. Any current needs? No. Yeah, I don't think there's any major wins other than things are kind of progressing as they should. Yeah, I think that's it.
Hey, Joe, can I ask you a quick question on the thing you posted? I was just curious, how did you deal with the Wi-Fi situation at your apartment building?
Yeah, so I 99% sure I have a company that I'm going to go with who is going to come in, and they're a professional networking company, and they're going to come in and put probably 8, I think is the current estimate, 8 access points. And they're going to basically, so that building, as you guys saw in that picture, is like an old school looking motel type of setup.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to put those on the outside porch, like soffits in the front of the building exterior. That way we can always get to them. They're outside units. We don't have to get inside if we ever have to mess with the one.
Okay.
But their plan right now is 8 access points that will basically give a good signal to every unit. And if you can see on those pictures, the concrete barriers are stopping that signal. But from a math standpoint, the way I'm looking at it is whatever I'm probably gonna end up spending, somewhere between 6 to 10 grand between the cabling, the hardware, and the actual labor. So the upfront cost sucks, but I'm saving the tenants $2,500 a month, roughly, on the cable bill, and I can then charge them probably $50 a month each. And the NOI on that 50, I can do the math right now if anyone's curious. But this is the power of commercial real estate. That's $1,400 a month in gross rent times 12, 7 cap. So that's a $240,000 valuation off of a $10,000 initial investment, and then $300 a month. So math wise, it's definitely makes sense. And I just, from the demand we've had, I know I'm under market. I mean, I'm only written this for $795, and I could probably get $895 right now, no problem.
That's great. Yeah, I was curious when you posted that, how intrusive that would be in terms of if you have to go into walls or whatever, but that's cool that they
we're
great.
gonna probably just do conduit and do outside units. So
good deal.
Yeah, should work out well. And yeah, I'm trying to get it done though, because our new tenants are like they expected Wi-Fi, which rightfully so, and we have the wireless system in place. It's just not doing enough, so we're trying to make it happen sooner than later. Cool. Any other final thoughts, questions, comments? Did you guys like this? I mean, was this helpful? Hopefully.
This is great.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, very
It's
helpful.
awesome.
So more, you guys are more stuff like this, more processes, and I mean, I'm happy to kind of work through all of the different
Screen sharing and
aspects.
all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Joe, what is your total unit count up to so far in your portfolio?
about 75.
Sweet.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. It's somewhere in there.
That's awesome. Are you saying that as far as like with the market shift, everything's slowing down where there's not much inventory going around? So even down in Cincinnati, you're saying like some of the top brokers in the city aren't really pumping out even a mom and pop small.
There's the last time, I mean, I'm checking the market almost every day. There's less than 100 small multis on the market right now. I mean, which is very historically low for us.
Gotcha.
and Gage was saying on the refi. So I'm actually doing 2 refis right now as well. One was kind of like unexpected. I had a commercial note on a property where they told me my rate next month was going up to like 7% because it was on a 5-1 arm and the 5 years was up and I didn't even realize it. So I'm actually doing a cash out refi on that one. Put it on a 15-year note because that was a property I bought when my first daughter was born to be paid off when she's in school. So she's 5, so in 15 years it'll be pretty much paid off. But the cool thing was I'm actually going to be able to pull some cash out, and I got that one for like 6 1/4, and it's a duplex on a cash out too. So what Gage was saying, 7 something that yeah, he can definitely get better rates out than that. But so 6 1/4, and so not bad. I mean, I was pretty happy with that because like a month ago, 2 months ago, that would have been 7. So I mean the rates have gone down quite a bit. And that's on a cash out. Like if I wanted to do rate and term, I could get it for like 5 7/8 or something. So I just happen to be pulling out some of the cash I put into it because it's, obviously I haven't refied it in 5 years. But yeah, anyway, that was unexpected, but it gives me a little bit more money to play with. And then another one was a cash deal that I just never refied. So that's just getting its first refi. But yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you guys for your time, and we'll keep it going. Like I said, so I think we're getting a little pattern here. I'm trying to do like first call an interview, second call like a skill set. Hopefully you guys are enjoying that, and we'll get another interview lined up for the next call, and that'll be on the 8th of February. So I will see you all then. If you need anything in the meantime, feel free to hit me up, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys.
Also-
Thanks, guys.